Well, welcome everybody. I'm super excited guys to have everyone here today. Welcome to our Mindful Mobility Tech Talk Fridays. We are happy to have our topic for today is Industry and Education Partnerships, Building Workforce Advocates to Drive Education Opportunities and Funding. We wanted to, this series is brought to you by the Green Transportation Summit, or GTSE as you guys all know it, the West Coast Collaborative, and the Mobilize Summit California show. And we wanted to make sure that we acknowledge our webinar sponsors for this. Maddie, if you could move to the next slide. Of course, we have some fantastic sponsors: Central Oregon Community College, the Clean Cities Group, Treasure Valley, Long Beach Clean Cities, Future Tech, Diagnostic Networks, Chabot College, Utah Clean Cities, the CEC, East Bay Clean Cities, Columbia Willamette Clean Cities, and my vision is not that good today. It looks like I'm missing one other one. But we want to make sure we thank everyone for our sponsors. If you are interested in sponsoring one of these webinars, we'd love for you to reach out to Brian Trice for us. And please keep in mind that we will have some other webinars that are coming up. But as always, we always start our webinar with the same old phrase: cars are everywhere. They're one of the biggest, most complicated products that we use every single day. And as usual, our housekeeping. Please, we love the opportunity for you guys to chat with other attendees in the chat box. And if you have questions, please use the questions box, the Q&A box that you see there. And feel free to ask your questions during the presentation. We will try to answer them after the presenters, or if it is a bit longer, we will save it for the Q&A session towards the end. Please note that the webinar is recorded and will be available to all attendees. And please complete the event feedback form when the seminar concludes. We always appreciate any feedback that you guys give us. So let me introduce myself since I'm your moderator for today. This will be our agenda. We have a fantastic lineup. I'm Jannet Malig. I'm the Statewide Director for Advanced Transportation and Logistics, representing the California Community Colleges. I'm hosted out of Cerritos College. And your speaker lineup for today is Ken Mays, Larry Rillera, Michael Laughlin, Scott Brown, and Dr. Mark Quarto. So we want to say thank you for all of you guys. Some of you guys have had the opportunity to talk with them. So the first person on our panelist, as you guys have had in previous, but he actually gets to be a panelist instead of a moderator, is Mr. Ken Mays. He is the professor and director of the automotive technology at Central Oregon Community College. He's developed a new degree, AAS, Automotive Technology and Electronics and Diagnostics degree at Central Oregon Community College. He's also helped to form the Advanced Vehicle Training Group Northwest, which is a regional consortium of automotive industry representatives and community college instructors, which the mission is to address the growing technician readiness gap and to improve in-service technician continuing education participation through the utilization of best practices and industry-leading curriculum. Currently, he serves as the principal investigator for the National Science Foundation Advanced Technological Education Award under the Northwest Engineering and Vehicle Technology Exchange, which is NEVTEX. And the purpose for that is to create advanced vehicle training standards for technicians working with electric drive systems, which is included in the NSF ATA grant, will be a discussion about the required licensure for technicians working with which includes high voltage, high pressure systems, And Ken is involved with multiple organizations and colleges and collectively addresses the need and preparation for hybrid and electric drive technicians as the transportation technology explosion continues to escalate. So Ken, welcome.
Thank you, Janet. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you for the Mindful Mobility organization. And we all have great speakers coming at us today. I am privileged to be a part of this. I would like to talk a little bit about funding. And as we start with various degrees around the country, new degrees, there is a need for funding as we move into this new era of vehicle electrification systems. So I would like to start off by telling you about this thing called ATE, Advanced Technological Education, which is a subset of the National Science Foundation. It's actually designed for two-year community colleges, but it folds into four-year colleges as well as high school. So this is not just limited. It could be partnered with a number of other organizations, but especially industry. So I want to talk about funding. There is no way that a community college or an organization is going to create a training program for their region, for their area, for their city, for their town without additional help. And that's what I want to talk about today. My new degree called Automotive Technology and Electronics and Diagnostics was helped by the NSF ATE program, and gave myself and others time off of work to work on this, design, submit, and not an easy task. So we have controller systems, we're doing lightweight programming, we're doing electric vehicle, hybrid vehicle still, and we even include a clean diesel class in there for right now. There's another program, just if Nelson Kelly is on the line, and I think he is, up at Macomb Community College, they just are starting a vehicle engineering technician program, another two-year program, a new name, because it's going to match the direction that we are going in this industry. And that's what it's all about. In your area, there is a need. If there isn't a need for new technicians to work with vehicle electrification systems, there will be shortly. We're working with California right now. There's a mandate in California to move things along at a pretty steady pace. I'm encouraging those in California who have had inadequate funding to take a look at what I'm talking about right now. But the ATE program is from the National Science Foundation. It's created to improve and expand educational programs for technicians to work in high-tech STEM fields that drive the U.S. economy. It's congressionally mandated and focuses on both the undergraduate and secondary school level. Next slide, please. Here's a slide that talks about some of the options. This is not all of the options to start. So if you were going to start with a small grant, I'm going to focus your eyes on small grants, and it's for institutions new to ATE up to a $300,000 three-year program. That's where I would like for you to consider starting. Now, the deadline is just going past now for this year, but it takes you discussing with your local industry, your other faculty in your program, talking with your college, connecting, making sure this is a direction that you as a program can do. Are you willing to take on the task? Are you willing to advance your program? Now, that's a small grant. There are other grants, and as you get moving, there's something called moving on up. So after you have developed an initial program, you have some other things, you're doing outreach for new students. We have these things called ATE project grants. My favorite two are Adapt and Implement, which is, I call it the copycat grant. If you have a program like what Macomb is doing, you can go ahead and give them a call and say, hey, let's work on this Adapt and Implement. We'd like to steal everything you design, and we'd like to have your help putting a program together for us. And then there's an instrumentation acquisition, mostly for equipment. That depends on what direction you want to go in, but equipment can be included in the small grant, project grant, adapt and implement, and instrumentation acquisition. So you will need equipment. This stuff is expensive. I won't talk much about the center grant, which is in the center, but you have a center grant and a resource center. Those are really, you have to be in the NSF ATE program for a while before you move in that direction. Next slide. These things require your participation. So you would have to have 2 faculty from your automotive program, or you might have a automotive instructor working with somebody out of your science department. That's what we did with our first grant. We had Bruce Emerson from the physics department, and it worked out really well. It's kind of lowering the silos that you have in your community colleges. So as you start working together, you will find it's a delight to start working together for common purposes. So the project plan, you have to have a faculty who's the principal investigator, and another faculty is the co-principal investigator. The college has to support this effort. You can't just do it all on your own. The college is going to be required to submit a plan. And if you were thinking about putting this in for next year, you can't start too early. So think about that. You have to have that college commitment for the ATE grant proposal. Next slide. I'm going to leave it there, but that is my information. And let me introduce you to the people who are going to help you move into a small grant. So take down my phone number, my email. Let's talk about this. Let me guide you a little bit. I mentor community colleges around the country, and I'm ready to help you get started. I may not be your mentor, but at least I can give you the story. I can give you the right guidance. So take down this phone number, take down this email, and don't hesitate to move forward with not only your college, but the industry, your advisory that's right there at the college with you. Don't forget about all the industry. They're going to have to support this effort just as well. Thanks all.
So Ken, there's a quick question that came up, and see if you could answer that. That came from Robin. It says, are the ATE grants open to state agencies like air quality or environmental quality?
They are if they are partnered with a community college. So it's not, you cannot go in there as a standalone organization, but you certainly want to talk with your community college and start working in that direction. And that's what it is, collaborative efforts at every level.
Fantastic, thank you. Fantastic. So our next speaker, some of you probably already know him, is Larry Rillera. He's the air pollution specialist for the California Energy Commission. Through the Clean Transportation Program, Larry leads policy, investments, and teams for zero-emission vehicle technology manufacturing, workforce training and development, and equity activities. Larry also serves on many state interagency teams and local public-private partnerships. Larry was the architect of innovative financing mechanisms for solar panel manufacturers through the California Infrastructure Economic Development Bank, and for the electric vehicle charging station loan program to the California State Treasurer's Office. Prior to his work with the CEC, Larry was former manager legislative affairs for Caltrans, superintendent of parks and facilities with the city of Palm Desert, and horticulturist for the city of Newport Beach. Larry holds a bachelor's degree of science, a bachelor's degree science degree in plant science from UC Davis, and a master's in public policy from the University of Southern California. Larry, thank you for being on this panel with us. We look forward to your presentation.
Great, thank you, Janet, and thank you everyone for attending. As Janet noted, I am with the California Energy Commission, and I work specifically under the Clean Transportation Program. I lead our efforts with respect to zero-emission vehicle ZEV manufacturing, our workforce training and development, and our equity and engagement activities. Today, I will be highlighting some of our investments and partnerships in California that advance workforce efforts in various transportation markets and technologies. I will also be highlighting the recent executive order by the California's governor and illustrating state policies that are driving the transition to zero-emission vehicles. Next slide, please, Maddie. I will be focusing on one investment of the state administered by the California Energy Commission. There are other state agencies that provide investments in different clean transportation areas as well. As a matter of context, the California Energy Commission is the state's primary energy policy and planning agency. In addition to licensing power plants, the Energy Commission also leads in transportation technology development, electric vehicle and fuel cell electric vehicle infrastructure installation, and support for clean transportation workforce. The Clean Transportation Program was established in 2007 and provides up to $100 million per year to advance vehicle and fuel technologies. As companion investments into transportation technologies, the CEC also provides funding to advance training for the workforce needed to develop, manufacture, operate, and maintain these technologies. To date, the Clean Transportation Program has invested over $35 million for various training projects. Next slide, please. To understand the motivations for this investment in workforce, one needs to look to understanding how California's policies drive clean transportation innovation while achieving multiple co-benefits and outcomes. The governor recently signed Executive Order N7920 on September 23rd, exactly 1 month ago. Specifically, the governor is ordering 100% of in-state sales of new passenger cars and trucks will be zero emission by 2035. 100% of medium and heavy duty vehicles in the state will be zero emission by 2045 for all operations where feasible, and by 2035 for drayage trucks. This is our freight sector. 100% zero emission off-road vehicles and equipment transition to zero emission by 2035 where feasible as well. The executive order requires the Energy Commission, working with the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, to update its biennial statewide assessment of zero emission vehicle infrastructure required by Assembly Bill 2127 to support the levels of electric vehicle adoption required by the executive order. Lastly, I would highlight that the Energy Commission, subsequent to this executive order, approved the Clean Transportation Program investment plan that provided over $380 million in funding. Next, please, Maddie. I have highlighted here early investments in our workforce portfolio. Given the limited experience and knowledge of workforce training during the early years for advanced transportation fuels and technologies, the Clean Transportation Program initially invested in sister state workforce entities. In addition to having immediate impact on funding for training, it also allowed the Energy Commission to build knowledge and training capacity. These early investments also lead to a more strategic approach to workforce investments and partnerships that recognize scaling technologies in various markets. It was clear that resources were needed to develop ZEV curriculum, train faculty and trainers, focus training in specific markets, and direct investments for all in career pathways that lead to good jobs. It was also clear that in addition to technology scale, the state needed to scale training as well. Next slide. Next slide, Maddie. To highlight, oops. Oh, we can stick to this one. The maturation of the Clean Transportation Program's workforce investments now leads to these current initiatives and projects that I've highlighted here. The focus has shifted somewhat in that current investments are more targeted, leverage existing institutions and levers, and also embed equity at the front end. I will review these 5 investments and partnerships in a little more detail. Next slide, please. There we go. The Clean Transportation Program, since its inception, has always invested in the development and support of emerging clean transportation supply chains. As these technologies developed in California, companies were able to leverage angel and venture capital, as well as leveraging California's innovation culture. In its manufacturing portfolio, the program has issued 5 solicitations focused on manufacturing for emerging clean transportation technology companies, some of which are noted here. It is important to recognize that investments and partnering in the manufacturing workforce with these companies and investments in these technologies remains critical, as this emerging sector is a creator of good jobs, especially in equity communities. Next slide. The second area of investment and partnership is in the development of ZEV and other advanced technologies with our community college, automotive, and truck programs and faculty. This partnership began in 2016 and has expanded. The partnership link at the bottom of the document highlights and will draw attention to much more detail with respect to our college partnership. Last year, the Energy Commission added a little over $1 million that diversified this portfolio by adding colleges that are located and serve disadvantaged and low-income communities. Intentionally embedding equity into these investments is a California value and is key to technology adoption and scale, while simultaneously having these communities accrue environmental and economic benefits. Next slide. Our third investment is targeted at California's high school career technical education automotive programs. The Energy Commission was intentional about this investment and partnership with high schools as a starting point for career pathway development. 28 high schools have been funded to date. We will be augmenting this program by $1.5 million to include more schools and to include schools with truck programs as well. Again, this technology and this investment is focused solely on zero emission vehicles. I would note that this investment has spurred considerable interest and stature by the students. Students have gone over and above the curriculum and classroom experience by initiating and documenting their own social media campaigns to promote these efforts in their communities. And this is key to advocacy and continuing outreach and advocacy for these technologies, especially during this time. Next slide, please. The next workforce partnership I would like to highlight is related to freight or goods movement. In 2015, the state issued an executive order calling for the development of a California Sustainable Freight Action Plan. One of the 9 actions identified was to conduct an assessment of the freight workforce. This workforce partnership is with CSU Long Beach, the University of Southern California, and the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. This pilot workforce project addresses the 5 areas noted here on this slide. I would also note that the workforce focus for this partnership was on middle skill occupations. The project will be completed in December. Next slide, please. The last investment and partnership I will highlight is for our electric bus training project. In 2017, the Energy Commission was provided over $75 million to fund school districts that wanted to replace their old diesel school buses. As a companion piece to this funding opportunity, the Energy Commission provided training for school bus maintenance technicians and bus operators. The program awarded bus and funding for charging infrastructure as well to over 60 school districts and for over 230 electric buses. Additionally, this project provided funding for the development of curriculum and training to be provided to school bus maintenance staff by regional community colleges throughout the state. Next slide, please. CARB, or the California Air Resources Board, is responsible for implementation of the National Air Quality Standards. CARB does this through a suite of programs and regulations, some of which are noted here. This slide shows the progress of clean transportation regulations. I have noted in red the current regulations in development. I will also draw your attention to the innovative clean transit rule a little bit earlier in this depiction in 2018. We are in the middle of this implementation, and recently this summer, the transit agencies provided rollout plans. I'm talking about this because in those rollout plans is an articulation of workforce training and development that will need to accompany the rollout of these assets, rolling assets. I also want to point out that there are 15 or so states that have adopted California's vehicle standards under Section 177 of the Federal Clean Air Act, whereby these states are also committed to clean transportation technologies and clean transportation economies. I would also note that the architecture for these regulations were put in motion before the governor's recent executive order, and CARB may be making some modifications, which will be something to monitor as well. So the question for us today is, what is the status, actions, and partnerships of workforce training and development needed to support this transition to ZEVs? Next slide, please. Finally, I want to draw attention to planned investments of the Clean Transportation Program. I had articulated earlier and referenced approval of the Clean Transportation Program's investment plan. Here is the snapshot, if you will, the details and the allocations for the various categories of funding. In yellow, I have highlighted investments in workforce training and development. While small in numbers, these investments are critical to supporting a workforce for an emerging ZEV supply chain. As we will not be able to spend our way into workforce solutions, we must partner and learn new ways to advance our clean transportation industry. Next slide. Great, thank you. Appreciate your time and look forward to the rest of the day.
So Larry, a question came up from Colleen, and the question is, are these pilot programs open to community colleges, high school ZEV partnerships, and CTE pathways?
Yes, they're open up through the community colleges in partnership with the Energy Commission. There's some strategic analysis that goes into selection, but I want to highlight, if I'm on the correct track for a response, that we want to look for these schools that are located in disadvantaged low-income communities throughout the state.
Fantastic. Okay. I guess I'll give an opportunity if there's any other questions. If not, we will move to the next presenter. Thanks, Larry. Sorry, there is a quick question. Hold on that. Larry, it says, and I don't know if you want to answer this now or later, it's, can you detail the recent increase in the workforce development and training? That comes from Nina Babiars. Larry, that's for you. Did you want to answer that, or you want to hold off until later on? I guess we'll hold that one for later. So we have a polling question while we get Larry back on. If Maddie can put that polling question up. So the question says, and I'll read it out so you guys can think about this, is what is your awareness of Department of Energy's Vehicle Technology Office range of activities across basic vehicle component research, transportation systems analysis, and modeling and pilot stage demonstrations through clean cities? Couple more seconds.
Cool. So looks like there's a pretty good balance of people who are somewhat aware of what we do at VTO and the Vehicle Technologies Office at DOE, and some who are not at all aware. So hopefully what I'll talk about will be new to a lot of you, or fairly new to a lot of you. So excellent.
Okay. So before I have Michael talk, I'd love to give you his bio. So as you can see, Michael's on the screen. He is the Vehicle Technologies Office for the U.S. Department of Energy. He's the technology manager. Michael's role with DOE's technology integration program includes day-to-day management of TI-funded projects and serving as an interface between the TI and other Vehicle Technology Office research programs. In particular, the Energy Efficiency Mobility Systems Program, kind of EEMS is what we know it to be. Michael has more than 25 years of experience in alternative fuels and advanced vehicle technologies with the Department of Energy and several VTO support contractors, including roles as a co-coordinator for several Clean Cities coalitions around the country. Michael holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Akron and an MBA from Walsh University in Ohio. Michael, we're thrilled to have you. So
Great, thank you.
We're ready to have you present. Take it on.
Sounds great. All right. So over the next few minutes, I'll try to provide a quick overview of some of the U.S. Department of Energy, or DOE, activities in workforce development, and hopefully I'll remember to spell out all my acronyms. It's part of my job description to provide as many acronyms as I possibly can as a member of the federal government. As I'm part of the Vehicle Technologies Office, or VTO, and its Technology Integration, or TI, program, I'm really doing good with the acronyms so far. I'll be focusing a lot of my remarks on our work here, as it's what I know best. I'll talk a bit about broader DOE activities and workforce development as well. I'm certainly not an expert in everything DOE is doing here, but I'm certainly happy to talk more with any of you to help explore DOE resources wherever I can. Just as a quick note, I'll be talking about past funding from DOE today, as I'm not really able to discuss any future funding that our office or other parts of DOE may be planning. That being said, hopefully our past funding information will give you an idea of the kinds of projects DOE and TI in particular is interested in. Next, please. So starting off, let's explore why the TI program is interested in workforce development and training. As you can see in this overview graphic of TI's focus areas and their relationships, training is one of the key activities we pursue. The TI program overall connects technical research results from VTO with users in the field to test technologies and exchange information on their successes and shortfalls. We use our network of Clean Cities coalitions as our connections to these users. Our interest in training at TI is really threefold. We want our Clean Cities coordinators to be well equipped with the information they need to do their jobs. We want communities across the country to understand new technologies and incorporate them safely in their regions, and also really to be able to repair these vehicles safely. And finally, we want to have a hand in training the next generation of advanced vehicle engineers. Next, please. So firstly, we offer training for our own Clean Cities workforce through two main avenues: our Alternative Fuel Data Center website and the Clean Cities website. The Alternative Fuels Data Center, or as we like to call it, the AFDC, is a great training resource for alternative fuels and advanced technologies. The AFDC collects, analyzes, and distributes data used to evaluate alternative fuels and vehicles. The website houses an extensive collection of information, data, and tools related to every technology and fuel in the Clean Cities portfolio. These resources and information are available to anyone through the AFDC website link shown on this slide. Our Clean Cities website also offers some training resources here specifically for our Clean Cities coordinators. Our intent is to build this workforce up and make them more effective at encouraging local use of alternative fuel and advanced technology vehicles. Clean Cities University, available for coordinators, includes virtual online courses for the major alternative fuels and technologies. These are easily understandable walkthroughs of the basics of each fuel to ensure all our coordinators have a sound understanding across our technology portfolio. We also include training on the many tools DOE has made available to help with deploying alternative fuel vehicles, such as the A-Fleet vehicle cost and emissions calculators. Beyond this, Clean Cities also includes educational content beyond the alternative fuel technology. We have virtual courses on the many soft skills needed to build a successful coalition organization. Next, please. So at several points in recent years, the DOE Technology Integration Program has made funding opportunities available for training programs. The avenue that DOE uses for these opportunities is the Funding Opportunity Announcement, or FOA, process. We at VTO have typically released at least one and sometimes multiple FOAs each year, soliciting proposals on many topics across our office's research portfolio. All the work that VTO funds with external stakeholders is done through this avenue. We typically don't fund unsolicited proposals. Our interest in training recently is focused on projects that will ensure the success of alternative fuels and advanced technologies in the real world. This includes alternative fuel training for first responders, public safety officials, and critical service providers, which we offered in a funding opportunity in 2015. These projects have now all been completed and covered electricity, natural gas, and propane. The work resulted in national level training resources through organizations like the National Fire Protection Association and the National Alternative Fuels Training Consortium. Several regional level training networks were also part of this work. In addition to first responders, TI made efforts to reach code officials and authorities having jurisdiction to ensure they were well informed about the current best practices for garage facilities used with gaseous fuel vehicles. In more recent years, TI has also had open topics in which we ask for ideas within our technical scope that aren't really covered in other topics we've put in that year's FOA. Applicants are welcome to propose training concepts within this open topic, and we did fund a project in the most recent 2020 FOA for electric vehicle training courses with the National Fire Protection Association. I'd encourage everyone who's interested in exploring funding opportunities with the Vehicle Technologies Office to sign up for our newsletter at vehicles.energy.gov and to stay in touch with your local Clean Cities coordinator. Both information avenues will alert you whenever we release new funding opportunities. Next, please. The DOE Vehicle Technologies Office also supports efforts to train the next generation of engineers through what we call our advanced vehicle technology competitions. You can see in the graphic on the upper right that we've held quite a few of these competitions over the years that have gone for both car and light truck platforms and explored many alternative fuels like natural gas, propane, ethanol, and hybridization. And for those in California, you might see methanol in there as well. More than 90 universities from across North America have participated in our student competitions over the past 30 years. Our competitions have seen more than 20,000 graduates pass through the program. The current EcoCar Mobility Challenge kicked off in late 2018 and is using the 2019 Chevrolet Blazer as its platform. The competition is currently targeted for completion in summer 2022, although current events might have something to say about that. A total of 12 North American universities have joined this challenge. For this competition, DOE is teaming with General Motors, MathWorks, and over 15 other government industry leaders to challenge participating teams to integrate advanced propulsion systems to enable significant improvements in energy efficiency, deploy connectivity and automation technologies to meet energy efficiency goals and market needs, and balance these energy efficiency needs with consumer acceptability, safety, and cost considerations. We haven't stayed stagnant. Over the years, our student competitions have evolved to better mirror industry practices. Initially, the competition design process was a one-year design, build, compete cycle, but we've moved to a refined four-year vehicle development process that's similar to real-world processes at the OEMs. Year one focuses on design. Year two work focuses on integration. Year three is development, and year four is refinement and market engagement. Next slide, please. A couple other things to note. The Workforce Development and Emerging Fields project is one that was awarded just this past July, and the Vehicle Technologies Office is helping to manage this project. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory and the University of Tennessee will lead this work. Over the course of the 5-year interdisciplinary program, participating students will focus on research and development in evolving technical fields, including resilient energy systems. In addition, students will also receive professional development training, including communications, computational literacy, and technology transfer to prepare them for the 21st century workforce and develop their entrepreneurial skills. And finally, for the information I want to provide today, DOE maintains a website that compiles our science, technology, engineering, and math activities across all of our technical programs, as well as activities at our national laboratories. This includes a number of resources for workforce development, and I provided the link in the slides for your reference. And I'm sure Maddie will copy that into the chat as well. Next, please. So wrapping up, I'd like to note that DOE is certainly interested in workforce development and training to ensure that the technologies we are developing through our research eventually reach the marketplace and are successful. I'll be happy to take questions during our Q&A time, or you can feel free to reach out to me at the email that's on the screen. Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. I guess I'll give a couple of minutes if anybody has any questions for Michael, quick ones, or if you want to wait until towards the end, because I'm sure we'll have some open dialogue related to this. But okay. All right, on to the next panelist. Here we go, another polling question. And you could, this is Scott's question, and it says, which agency and document is the industry authority on ADAS systems terminology? Just a couple more seconds. Well, y'all must have been paying attention to Scott, right? In these previous presentations.
All right, good job, everybody.
So you guys all know Scott, but I'm going to present him again as a panelist. As you all know, Scott's been our presenter numerous times. Scott has an ASE, is an ASE Master's Certified Auto Technician with over 3.5 decades of professional industry experience. He has his own shop located in Claremont, not that far away from here. Wow, the 60th anniversary, huh, Scott? I hadn't paid attention to that until now. Has a strong focus on engine performance and electronics. Scott began collaborating with other industry professionals online beginning in the early 90s, and since 1995, he has been instrumental resource in the development of the largest online community of automotive service professionals, and it's called the IATN network, where he once served as a company president. He also served as NASTF Board of Directors and is the member of ASCCA, CAT, ETI, ICAR, and SAE. And he is, of course, where we have him here, is the founder of the Diagnostic network. So, Scott, as always, you have these fantastic presentations. So we look forward to you presenting for us.
Great, thank you. Happy to be here again. Thank you, everybody. So I am going to talk about ADAS, and I'm going to give you the perspective from the aftermarket service. As you know, the aftermarket service providers out there basically service about 70% of the vehicle fleet out there. And over the last decade or so, and more recent years, we've seen an explosion of technology. The technology stack on these vehicles has just grown tremendously, and a lot of it's driven by the advanced driver assistance system. So next slide, please. The biggest challenge is, the ingredients you need is training and knowledge. So you have to have that knowledge in order to deliver the service. And then we also need to have access to tools and equipment. And this stuff is hitting our market today, and there isn't a lot of support out there. So I have a company that reached out to me, somebody that I've been working with for the last, say, 25 or 30 years, that sells a lot of tools and equipment. And they came to me and said, hey, we want to start selling ADAS equipment, but we're afraid that we're not going to be able to deliver the equipment without proper training. And they asked me if I would like to help them put together some training. So This is what we've partnered up, and this is our solution we're going to show you here today of what we're providing. So next slide. So AES Wave is my partner, and they're in California here. And their number one focus is training, and they do provide training for other aspects of automotive service. But the other thing we wanted to focus on was providing continuing support, because this technology, it isn't something you just learn and then you go and start doing it. It's continuing to evolve, and things are changing rapidly, and there's a lot of software involved. So what we know today and the way things work today may not be true tomorrow, because of the way that software is being deployed and these systems are getting better. So next slide. So this is my workshop here, and this is what we've set up inside my shop as a classroom. We typically have classes on an all-day Saturday. We get some brand new cars. We have some syllabus, and then we go out and we actually do some troubleshooting and calibration, and we walk our technicians or our students through the whole thing. So I've got a short little video that shows you what's actually going on. Go ahead and play that. All right, next slide. So you see there's a lot going on there, a lot of data. Oh, that was our full screen slide. Okay.
1 second.
Okay, yeah, that's the slide. Okay, so the continuing support part, again, we know that things are continuing to evolve. So we partnered with Diagnostic Network. That's the company that I founded a couple of years ago. And what we've done with AES is we've created a private support group where the students that come to class, they get invited into this. And then we've got some administrators that are helping us run this from AES. And so we're posting tips, case studies, things that are good to know, points of reference, and things that you typically don't find in service information. And this is how we can stay in touch with our clients and keep them up to date with changing trends in this ever-changing emerging technology. So next slide. And Diagnostic Network can be found at diag.net. Our goal is to connect professional technicians to enable the successful repair of complex vehicles, and that's through peer discussion, partner collaboration, and education. So this all falls right within our overall mission. So next slide, and that's it. I think we've got Q&A. Any questions?
Any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Scott, as always. So now off to the next one. Here we go, polling question. This comes from Mark. His question, according to the 2020 ASC Training Managers Council Benchmark Survey, what two categories do technicians indicate that they have the highest need for training? Select two from the list.
Janet, could you scroll down, please? Or Maddie, could you scroll down so everybody can see all the categories?
It's do it yourself. So scroll down and it'll be able to change it for yourself.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks.
We got a lot of them, yeah. Hope that helps.
We're gonna let it run just a little bit longer because there's a lot of options at the bottom that we have. And
All right, I'm gonna launch it or end the poll.
got it. Okay. So ADAS, hybrid EV, and electrical electronics. Those are the top three on there. Okay. So before I let Mark answer, of course, I want to share Mark's bio to all of you. If you guys all don't know Mark, some of you have. Dr. Mark Quarto has supported alliances and customers in the development of electric propulsion and energy management power systems for over 33 years. His former work for 28 years with General Motors consisted of developing propulsion and battery pack systems for the GM EV1, Chevy Tahoe, Yukon Hybrid, Chevy Spark EV, Chevrolet Bolt, and numerous demonstration fleet electric and fuel cell products. His specialty is developing diagnostic systems, diagnostic information, and pioneering control systems that permit innovative diagnostic techniques and diagnostic tool development. His passion for educating and training the next generation of automotive technicians and engineers has connected him with many international educational projects. Dr. Quarto provides instruction on hybrid electric plug-in vehicle systems for the SAE, OEMs, and Tier 1 suppliers, and in the college environment. He is a patent holder for electric drive systems, testing tools, and battery testing processes. He holds a doctorate in technical education on hybrid systems from Nova Southeastern University, a master's degree in electric machine technical education, and a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and automotive technology. As always, Mark, thank you so much for being with us. You're quite the degree holder and experience. So as always, we love to have you here and can share additional every time you're with us.
Sure. Well, thank you, Janet, and good afternoon or good evening to everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Clean Cities and Brian Trice for the opportunity to present today and provide, well, what we feel is an important message to everyone who's involved in the transportation space. Second, thank you to Janet for the kind introduction. Appreciate that very much in providing a background for the presentation discussion. And special thanks to Maddie Resnick for managing the session today. Thank you, Maddie. I think to frame this part of the session, I think we can all agree that the vehicles are now heavily concentrated in electronics and software for controls and diagnostics. And certainly these areas have become a focal point and core competencies in the automotive diagnostic market. I was invited here today to share how Future Tech Auto addresses automotive instructor and technician needs in learning electronics and software technologies, as Future Tech also does with its vehicle electrification products. So from the perspective of background, Future Tech was a recipient of the ASE Training Managers Council Award in its electronics and software training program in 2019. And this program has been used to train technicians, instructors, and engineers, and we kind of flex the level of how we do that when we teach it. So Mindful Mobility thought sharing Future Tech's programs on automotive-focused electronics, firmware, and software courses would provide some context anyway to how connections are made directly to automotive electrified vehicle and ADAS systems. So with that background, let's get started. Okay, can we have the next slide? Okay, there we go. There's the title slide. That's what we're doing today. We're taking a look at the necessity of instructor and technician electronics and software education. Okay, next slide, please. So what aspects of training and technology are driving the field to acquire a working knowledge of electronics and software? Next slide. So let's take a look at the ATMC ASE Training Managers Benchmark Survey. Next slide, please. And to answer the polling question, the top 2 aftermarket needs, what they claim according to the benchmark survey, is hybrid and electric systems are first, and then electrical electronics are second. Okay, next slide, please. So if we take a look at electrification, we know that since the year 2000, about 21 model years, we've had 3 things that have come out. We've had hybrid vehicles, extended range electrics, battery electrics, and plug-in electrics. And these, of course, have populated the market. Next slide, please. So if you take a look at the influence of advanced electronics and software, really it comes, maybe boils down to 3 buckets. In the traditional vehicle systems and controls, and electric plug-in and hybrid systems, and then ADAS systems, really you've got 3 things. You've got powertrain controls, you've got vehicle electronics, and you've got software and firmware controls. Those are probably the 3 buckets that we have on the vehicle, and they're all based in software and electronics. Next slide, please. So what has FutureTech's approach been to this? Next slide. So what we want to do in what we've done in our electronics program is provide a working knowledge of electronics devices and firmware and software. Basically, a working knowledge is taking a look at device operation, reviewing data sheets, and then how to test or analyze devices, and then taking a look at failure modes. And of course, these things are critical for enhancing the diagnostic prowess of anybody working in the automotive field, whether it's technicians, instructors, or engineers. Next slide, please. So if you take a look at what the elements are, so instructors need a working knowledge of, instructors and technicians, and I would throw engineers into this too, need a working knowledge of the following. Take a look at the left side, electronics and networks skill acquisition. You take, and I won't read all these boxes off because you can get a copy of this presentation after, but anytime you get into skill acquisition, especially in automotive, it's all about component failure, how to manipulate circuits, device operation, things like that. And you get over to the software side, it's really software forces you to focus, develop some logic. It forces you to develop some diagnostic processes, construct solutions, how to manipulate circuits, and so on. So by knowing electronics and software, you really get the blend there of how the vehicles operate, and you can really get a deeper look into how diagnostics can be developed. This is over and above the OEM, what's offered in the OEM service manual or diagnostics, and it really augments that. Next slide, please. So the fundamental electronics and software training, when we take a look at the, and FutureTech has 2 courses. One's a fundamentals software and electronics training, and the other's an intermediate. Let's take a look at the fundamentals first. Next slide, please. So let's start the video. On this particular video here, the students have constructed a motor control circuit, and they're actually controlling a circuit through a potentiometer, which really could be any, yeah, go ahead and run that, please. There we go. So they're actually controlling this through a potentiometer. It's actually digital control of a motor, and this could really be ported over to any type of electric drive system, but they're using a potentiometer, which could be a bunch of inputs from different sensors. And we also teach them how to construct what they would normally see on a scan tool pit. We actually go through and show them how they can actually place that onto a laptop, so they can actually see the controls on some type of scan tool pit. Next slide, please. Okay, so I won't go through this raft. This is here for you for viewing later on if you'd like, but really the fundamentals course concentrates on electronic devices and then interfacing these devices with microcontrollers and then firmware and software. And these are competencies, of course, that are needed to enhance any type of diagnostic skill. So the first 2.5 days we spend on electronic devices. Next slide, please. And then the second 2 days we spend on writing and coding software. So, and next slide, please. And then at the end of the last day, we actually have a final project in which the participants will actually construct, that we will give them a problem to solve, and then they're going to go ahead and construct some software and some hardware in order to complete that solution. Next slide, please. So this is very quickly, this is one thing here. We take a look at circuits like this. If you look at it in the upper left-hand corner, you have a relay with a resistor across it. And then lower left-hand corner, you've got a relay with a diode across it. And then finally, in the blue box there, you see it's an injector drive circuit. We actually go through the differences on why you would use diodes, resistors, and Zener diodes, which is shown in the blue box, upper right-hand corner of that blue box. And then we actually go through that. So what you can do is you can look at the circuits, and when you start looking at devices, you can actually figure out what that circuit does or what it's supposed to do just by looking at the devices and how it's supposed to operate. So we are very heavy in automotive. Everything is automotive centric in what we do in this boot camp, both level 1 and level 2. Next slide, please. So this is one of the things we do. We have the participants generator develop a voltmeter, and using the microcontroller, and we get it down to about 4 millivolts of resolution. And this gets them into something that's both hardware and software related. You can actually measure voltage with this, 0 to 25 volt. Next slide. And here's just a snippet of the software code of another project. This is a transmission control, just a real snippet of how transmission clutches can be controlled just by using software. This is another thing that we do as well, so they can see how to work with more than one variable. Next slide, please. And then we get into the intermediate class. It actually then goes into some more advanced things by using the microcontroller and hardware. Next slide, please. So with the intermediate course, what's here is they'll focus on interfacing electronic modules with microcontrollers through using a data bus, which should enhance their skill set in working with data buses and also with ADAS sensing systems. So next slide, please. So in this course, they work with displays, generator. We have them count frequency and generate frequency. Next slide, please. We also have them work with sensors that would be working with ADAS systems, such as proximity sensors, ultrasonics, and LiDAR. And then we do, of course, as with the other courses, we actually have them calibrate in the software. We actually have them calibrate things in the software, like for the sensors, like for ADAS. And then we also have them do a final project. And again, this will be similar to the first boot camp, in which they will construct a project using the sensors, and it will actually have to do something. So let's go to the next slide, please. So this is one thing that they do. We actually take that voltmeter project we did in the level 1 class, and what we do now is we add a display to it so it can actually display the voltage on the microcontroller. So the controller reads the voltage and then displays it, so they can actually see that they can really monitor voltage through a display. Next slide, please. This is a proximity sensor, same thing. This would be used to sense distance on an object. And then this one is where the participants would build this circuit, they would code it, and then they would actually watch, and the LED will come on once the object gets within a certain distance. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just a snippet of some code for the ultrasonic sensor. So vehicles have ultrasonic sensors on them. So what we do is we have them code this up, and then we have them calibrate it. Next slide, please. I'll go ahead and run the video. This is a quick video of a class that we did. This is an intermediate class, and you can see here where the video hasn't started yet.
Somebody want to put their
there
right
we
there
go.
for
So we can see that the guys have constructed an ultrasonic sensing circuit,
There we go. There it
and
is.
they're getting closer with the hand here to the ultrasonic
And
sensor,
in.
which is right in front. There's a display there that's
Perfect.
displaying the
And
distance, and it's displaying it in both,
Less than a foot.
I think it's centimeters and feet. and then they have some LEDs that come on and off based on the distance. So there's a relay there that's turning on and off. So they got three things going there: LEDs, a relay, and a display, and then the sensor is telling them how close things are. So this is a really good project for them to work on. Next slide, please. Okay, so we deliver, Future Tech delivers these boot camps two ways. One is in classroom, which is held in several venues. And then we're also going to be running this class virtual in the first quarter of 2021. Basically, what we do is we ship the participants a project kit. And then what we do is we have virtual sessions together, and we will go through building these together and building and coding and things so they can get some support from us while they're doing it. And also there will be homework, like with anything out of class you take, and this will be done year round. And they just pick what schedule works best for them, and they take the class. So it's really kind of a win-win. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the Greek philosopher Seneca once said that, paraphrasing here, but success is when preparedness meets opportunity. And there's all kinds of opportunity today in the electronic and software skills area to apply it to a vehicle. And, you know, Future Tech is more heavy into electrification, but there's all kinds of stuff within electrification where this applies as well. So just make sure you're prepared. Actually, you need it. Really, you need it now, irrespective if you're getting it from Future Tech or somewhere else. Just get your skills updated because you're going to need it. Next question. Next slide, please. Okay, here's my contact information. Feel more than you can reach out anytime you'd like. I can be reached at 2 email addresses up there: Quarto Tech and Future Tech. My number's there. And we also have a main number for Future Tech, and you get info from them. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to me babble on here for the last 10, 15 minutes. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Questions. You know what I'm going to do is there's been a few questions that have popped up. I'm going to go back to a couple of them so we can make sure they're answered. I want to go back to Nina's first question. And let me just make sure it was here. Oh, Nina, did I lose your question? It was here. Actually, it's in the chat box. And it was for Larry. Let me see if I can find it here. Maddie, if you could find the question here. We saw it here earlier. Oh, so Larry, the question that came from Nina was, can you detail the recent increase in the workforce development and training?
Thank you, Nina, for that question. I think you might be referring to one of the slides where it looks like we have dollars that go out till 2023. And our investment plan for the first time in our 11-year portfolio has actually identified dollars for workforce training and development that go out to the end of the program's authority. And that's why you see the dollars kind of go out there. The increase is because we have not only the intention of training and working the levers and partnerships we do, but we recognize, given the current pandemic and the impact it is having to vulnerable communities, that if we front load some of that dollars and provide the increase now, that will have some recovery and some economic rebound impact, which we certainly want to be a part of. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, next question. Nina, she asked this for you, Michael. It says, while hydrogen is still the most prevalent element in our universe, what do you or DOE see as its most formidable obstacle to broader applications to auto and vehicle industries?
Great, yeah, thanks for that. So I'll speak on behalf of the technology integration program. There is a hydrogen fuel cell office in DOE that works on a lot of these things. From our perspective, I think it's the same problem that a lot of alternative fuels have had, or just simply the supplying the fuel to the vehicles where they need it and when they need it. Getting the fueling stations out there and getting the getting the fuel station out there and getting the fuel itself produced and out there. I think those are some of the big ones we see.
Fantastic. Next question. This is from Mark. Pam is asking, the first question is the cost for your boot camp class. I know that we've had numerous questions about that in different locations. So you do have a great program.
I would rather that they contact the office to ask for that, because every time I give a price out, I'm always wrong. And then I get beat, I get slapped over the head. So I'd prefer that just email me, and then I'll forward that to the marketing and sales and let them answer the question, because I'm just a techno guy, and you know, they really kind of run the program. So I'm sorry to kind of push the question off, but it's really better to get the current pricing from them, and that way I'm not going to be in the doghouse. How about that?
Sounds good. Okay, next question, Larry Engelrecht. Thanks for joining us. You see Larry's question, and which is for you, Mark. In your opinion, would a technician with ASE A6, L1, and perhaps L3 certification have sufficient knowledge to enroll in boot camp level 1, or would they need additional electrical or electronics training?
No, I think, well, first of all, the courses are designed so that someone coming in doesn't really have to have any electronics background or software. That's really the way they're built. And so I would say that if they've got a solid electrical background, such as they know how to use a meter, they know how to make measurements with that meter, things like that, that's really where we need to start. Other than that, they really don't need anything else. I would say just a solid electrical background. And there is a difference between electrical and electronics. They're not even close to being the same. And if they've got a good electrical background, that's all they need. They don't need anything else to come in. We'll kind of build up from there.
Thank you so much. I don't see any major questions. So I'm actually going to ask, because I'm looking at the attendees that we have here. I do have a significant amount of automotive faculty or people who come from my community colleges. And I'd love for all of you guys, you know, we brought in these great funding opportunities and also training for you guys to think about what it is that you guys think you need or want, and how to jointly partner together. You know, like when we look at the opportunities that Larry offers us with the Energy Commission, you know, what does that mean for yourself? And I guess I'll ask Larry this question. When we look at like the question that Colleen had asked about partnerships, are there key things that you're looking for or hoping to make sure, you know, I know you mentioned the equity piece, but when you look at that, or when you look at a school, or you look at developing a program or a partnership, you know, key things to look at to make sure that the program is implementable or executable in the fashion that the CEC is looking for? Is there any guidance or anything like that that you could help us with?
There's several hallmarks that we look for. One of them is that there's some strength in the program where it resides. So that the high school and the students, the administration, both at the facility and the administration that is remote or higher level, maybe superintendent, if we're talking about the school level, kind of is in support of the automotive technologies and the truck technologies. The other thing we've seen and kind of value is the cross-pollination, cross-sector, cross-career technical education programs. We see something in the construction and the engineering and the automotive where the students kind of cross-share, and that's also important. When we talk about career pathways and sustainable partnerships, we're also looking at, does the school, the college, have a connected and ongoing relationship with the dealer networks? We certainly want to prepare students for introduction to clean transportation and clean transportation literacy. They want to get the skills, but they also want, you know, we want to see that there's a pathway into some jobs for the current technologies and for the technologies of tomorrow.
Great response. Thank you. So that means Colleen asked, and this is for all the panelists, you know, as she works through that, she's looking for information she can share about career opportunities. What would you guys tell young people who might be interested in this? And honestly, that's a fairly common question for all of us. They talk about what does a job look like? How do I look for that? You know, Scott, I mean, you own a shop, you kind of look at that. Michael, you're a kind of engineer and you work with the STEM groups and those. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about that, to that question.
So I'll chime in first. So, you know, from the aftermarket perspective, you know, it's not uncommon for us to see 4 decades of vehicle technology in my service shop at any time. We could have a 2020 model year car and we could have a 1980 or, you know, 75 or whatever. And the technicians that, you know, they go into the dealership, you know, out of tech school, they're working on brand new technology, and that's all they see. And then after that car gets, you know, through the first 5 years or so, they typically are ending up in the aftermarket. And as the vehicles age, they start to have some bizarre things that happen, and they need to have a really diverse knowledge and skill set. You know, some of the stuff that Mark is teaching, that drills right into it, because it's, forget about the mark that's on the car. It's the technology and understanding what the technology is trying to do, and why it's behaving the way it is. A lot of times you'll find service information that will leave you hanging. It just doesn't give you enough context as to what exactly is happening. So a technician with a deep skill set for electrical, electronics, and then understanding how that software is running on the car, because more and more we're figuring out why the software is behaving the way it's behaving, and finding out that, oh, there's a calibration change that needs to be done on the vehicle, or somebody's put the wrong module on a car and it's inflicting problems. So you know, the technician working on that modern complex vehicle has a pretty tall task, and we also need to respect the fact that these guys need to be compensated for what they're doing. And there's a lot of competing industries out there that are taking these technicians out of our industry because they're just not being compensated properly. So anyhow, that's my off the cuff response there, Janet.
I'd like to add to that with Scott. What we have found, especially over about the last 5 years when we kind of been getting into this electronic and software thing, is that a lot of the students that we've had come back and tell us that they've become much better diagnosticians because they have a deeper understanding, and they can kind of nuance a circuit. You know what I mean? If the information isn't there from the OE, they can kind of nuance things to kind of figure it out. So even if you never build a circuit, I mean, you know, with a lot of this information, you could build your own simulators, or you know, you could bug cars with it and things like that, which is fine. But I think on the student side, it really helps get them a good solid foundation in how to nuance the technology, because you have to nuance it. I mean, you're never going to have all the information on everything. It's never going to happen. But if you know how to engage the technology and then you can manipulate it, it really can become much easier to solve a problem.
Yeah, Janet, I had one quick response, and that is, you had asked about what we would tell prospective students. And I think that if a student, at least in my experience over the last couple of years, both at the high school and the college, if they formulated the question, they probably have an answer. And so I think the first thing would be simply to listen to them. There's still innovation and things that are cooking and brewing in their heads, and they want to kind of communicate that externally. And so to the extent that they kind of roll out a response or indicate their preferences on careers or technologies they might want to delve into a little bit deeper, that we listen, and then we of course provide some pathways and responses to which they can pursue those avenues.
And from the R&D side, which is, you know, where DOE focuses its effort, you know, there's a lot. What my message to folks asking that question would be: there's a lot of exciting technology coming down the pike, and that technology is going to get out in the hands of users, and you know, people are going to break it and they're going to need to fix it. So I think there's a lot of future opportunities that are going to be exciting, especially for people who are interested in automotive technology, who are interested in cars. It's an exciting time to try to get into the field.
Thank you. I do want to add one other thing to that. From looking at ours, I think all of you guys have brought different perspectives about what this looks like. And Larry talked about how they funded manufacturers and the technology. I think Colleen, on your side, it's a matter of, do they have a passion to look at this type of technology, and that it's available all the way through the supply chain, right? Like when Michael talks about the technology and somebody who thinks they want to do that, believe it or not, I think it's, Michael probably knows this, for every engineer, there's usually 5 or 6 technicians that support them, right? And so the opportunities for them to look at that is phenomenal. And then when you start to look at the OEMs who build a product, it's the same thing for the support mechanism, all the way down to what Scott talked about, whether you're going to be the mechanic at the end, or you're going to be the technician in the middle, or the technician in the beginning of the process. So I think it's a matter of, do they have a passion for this? And like Larry says, is if they feel that they like this, it becomes, do you like transportation? Where do you feel you want to be related to it? And then it becomes understanding who they are. I think for us in California, we have a wide range of opportunities for students. And I think it's the same when you look in Michigan, or if you look in the East Coast, in terms of technology, there's so much out there. So I think you can say, not only will you be the technician, but you could be the customer service guy who goes out there and works directly with the techs to figure out what's happening, or being the sales guy, but you have to have knowledge about what you're trying to sell them, right? And the engineer or whoever is out there. So I wanted to make sure that you have an opportunity to think about, like Larry talked about, that cross-pollination of careers that fit this particular sector when we look at it. So I wanted to make sure we address that for you. 2 things. I see a comment from Kurt that said, it would be great if there was a central location to quickly discover available grants and support to apply. Our regional people, like Pam, who's one of our regional directors, is amazing in helping what she's exposed to, but is pulled in so many directions. Possible state or regional person who will focus on facilitating grants for high schools and community colleges. So I have a question for those that fund. Again, this is Michael and Larry. One of the questions that come up quite often is there a cycle of when to look at grants that come out? Because I think it'd be interesting, it would be great knowledge for everyone on this webinar to know around what time of the year should they be looking for solicitations to come out.
I can take that one first. Thank you, Janet, and thank you, Pam, for the question. There is some seasonality. There is some cyclicality to the fundings. And certainly to the extent that you can get in for funding and grants that you're interested in specific areas, you need to develop your own knowledge and partnerships, because you'll have to come together with others at the table to go for some of these funding opportunities. The other would be that for the agencies, whether it's local, state, federal, it's important to understand that there's a period in which you can talk and engage to feel out your project, to understand partnerships, how to improve. This is not just about submitting an application, it's about submitting a competitive application. You don't want to be at the kind of middle of the pack and submit something. You want to obviously submit something that's going to have a return, if you will. To that extent, I would also encourage you to work with the staff and the agencies during this period in which they don't have the cone of silence. That's kind of my phrase, if you will, in which their staff and agencies are in a bubble and can't talk during the deliberative funding process. And so you'll have to use sort of the above board or the transparent public processes in which to get your questions answered. And so that has a little bit of a different tone. And certainly use this to market your technologies and your partnerships when the funding is not on the streets. That's the other part of this as well. In the ZEV space, the zero emission vehicle space for light duty, medium duty, heavy duty, we've talked a little bit about on-road, but in the freight sector, for all those technologies, it's really important that you know who's in this space. It's a very small world, and it's a world in which you can pick up the phone and have a quick chat, and next thing you know, you've got a partnership. So paying attention to these early partnerships, these early opportunities, not just in California. You know, I had alluded to earlier, these 177 states. These are 15 other states that are all within the same sort of umbrella of ZEV technologies that you can be cultivating opportunities for your clients or for yourselves.
Yeah. And very quickly from the DOE Vehicle Technologies Office side, I think, yeah, who knows what we can do in any given year, but if we do release a funding opportunity announcement, you can probably tell from past years that we've released things around the January timeframe each year. So you can probably pick up some trends from that. So that's being very careful about what I say, obviously.
Thank you. I think that's very useful when people try to figure out, you know, what the grant cycles look like. Everybody kind of has a general idea or solicitation period. So thank you so much. One last question. It says, what training is now being developed for autonomous vehicles? That's Nina's question. So Scott, Mark, I mean, you guys have been on this panel. I will say we have some Kurt's on here that are through the community colleges, but if you could briefly answer that, because I want to make sure I'm cognizant of people's time, but thank you.
Sure. So if we're defining an autonomous vehicle would be an SAE level 4 or 5. Of course, those vehicles don't exist today. So today, the training that's being developed and the systems that we're working on all have perception systems that will be used on those vehicles in the future. So there are a number of groups out there, mainly tied to collision, that are on the leading edge because these cars, people still break them. They run them into other cars. And the collision industry is really the one that's getting taxed with the learning. So there's a couple of groups out there. There's iCar, that's i-car.com. That's a big group out there that develops a lot of training and knowledge around that. There's AMI, the Automotive Management Institute. They provide a lot of the online training that certifies these collision centers under the OE umbrella. So there's a lot of access to the OEM actual training for those systems. It's all online based type training. And then there's a lot of traditional trainers out there, you know, your CarQuest, WorldPack, Napa. They're all developing training again for the systems that are supporting the cars that are in the fleet today. But as far as full-on autonomous vehicles, they're just not here yet. So, and I'm not sure how the service is going to work on those cars if they're missing controls like pedals and steering wheels when they're actually broken. I imagine getting one towed in one day, and we're going to have to figure out how to get it in the building. So interesting times ahead.
Great. And then just so you know, Kurt, the Shad Bolt, because he's been on ours, he does have the ADAS, you know, the ADAS is a foundational for autonomous, and he's done a fantastic job for my community colleges. If you're looking for curriculum, it's also available on atleducation.org directly for faculty. So I want to make sure that for my faculty people that are out there, you guys are welcome to take the material that Kurt has created with his partners on this. But I know it's 2:34. I want to be cognizant of people's time, but I want to say thank you for all of our panelists. Each and every one of you guys, I've had multiple conversations with you, and we so appreciate you guys being here. And we know that there will be some future ones coming down the road. So please keep an eye. Maddie, if you could hit that last slide. Stay tuned for more seminars in this series. We want to make sure we don't burn you out with webinars, but we realize these tech talks are pretty valuable, and we seem to get lots and lots of feedback on this. So please make sure you guys are filling out those surveys that we have. We want to make sure that these are pretty meaningful for all of you and that we could develop the next seminars. But for all my panelists, Scott, Ken, Michael, Larry, Mark, thank you very much. And I look forward to having the opportunity with you guys again. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.